We continue with our lesson on probability. All right, and we are going to look at performing an experiment like tossing a coin or tossing of a coin. All right, this is how, or we all know a coin. This is a coin, and then a coin has how many faces? It has two faces. There is the head and there is the tail. All right, there is the head and there is the tail. So if you have a coin like this, you can have two faces, the head and the tail. What we are going to look at today is when we toss the coin, we are going to look at the likelihood that maybe a head will show or a tail will show, depending on the number of times the coin is being tossed. So we can have that a coin is being tossed once, or a coin is being tossed 2 times, which is the same as tossing 2 coins at the same time, or tossing a coin 3 times, and so on. All right, so what we are going to first look at is tossing a coin once. All right, tossing a coin once. Okay, so tossing a coin once. So when you toss a coin once, what to be the possible outcomes? What can show, or what can we have when you toss a coin just once? All right, when you toss a coin once, our possible outcome, either we can have head or we can have what? A tail. All right, so let me put it in a set form. When a coin is being tossed once, these are the possible outcomes. All right, imagine that I have a guy toss it just once. Okay, when the coin is tossed just once, either the head will show or the tail will show. That is what it means. All right, and in Ghana, okay, where the coat of arm is, our coin, we have the coat of arm on all our coins. That is where the head is, and then the other side, okay, that is where it is the tail. All right, so then we have to look at the number of possible outcomes. So when a coin is being tossed, what will be the number of possible outcomes? Is 2. Head, tail. That's what we have 2. All right, so we can ask you a question like this. A coin is tossed once. What is the probability that it will be a head? So a coin is tossed once. What is the probability that it will be a head? So when I toss a coin just once, what is the probability that it will be a head? All right, so when you toss a coin just one, probability of a head will be what? So if I toss a coin just once, okay, I have a head just 1, because if I toss a coin just once, it will either be a head or a tail. So the probability of it being a head is just 1. Okay, so that will be 1. And what is the number of possible outcomes? We have 2. So the probability of it being a head is 1/2. 1/2. At the same time, probability of it being a tail is also what? If I'm asked of a tail, probability of a tail will also be what? The same 1/2. All right, so it's 50-50. That when you toss a coin once, either the head will show or the tail will show. So that is 1/2 for both of them. All right, so this is about tossing a coin just once. So we are going to look at tossing a coin twice. Okay, twice means 2 times. Tossing a coin 2 times, or we can say tossing 2 coins at the same time. So this is what we are going to look at, tossing a coin twice or 2 times. or tossing 2 coins at the same time. So when I toss a coin twice or 2 times, I toss it once and I toss it again. Okay, it's the same as when I have 2 coins and I'm tossing the 2 coins at the same time. These are my 2 coins and I'm going to toss at the same time. So when I toss at the same time, it's the same as me tossing this 1 coin 2 times. Alright, here, okay. So if I toss these 2 coins at the same time, let's look at the possible outcomes. So the possible outcomes, what can we get when you toss 2 coins at the same time, or tossing a coin twice? So when I toss 2 coins at the same time, what will happen is that the 2 coins, the 2 of them may show head. Both of them can be head. This one can be head and this one can be head. So that is one of the possible outcome. And then one can be a head, one can be a tail. Okay, so we are looking at all that can happen. And then the other one can be a tail, and then one can also be a head. Okay, so the one that show the head can show a tail too, and the one that show the tail can also show a head, and then the 2 of them can be tail. So this is what can happen when we toss a coin twice, or 2 coins are tossed at the same time. Either they are all head, one is head, one is tail, one is tail, one is head, or they are all tail. So what are the number of possible outcomes? Number of possible outcomes will be what? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4. Alright, so our number of possible outcomes for tossing a coin 2 times, or 2 coins being tossed at the same time, is 4. Okay, so we can ask questions on this and then we solve. So we are going to look at how questions on this can be asked and then we are going to solve it. Now let's look at a question on tossing a coin twice, or tossing 2 coins at the same time. He said a fair coin is tossed twice. Write down the set of all possible outcomes. What is the probability of obtaining A, exactly 2 heads, B, no head, C, at least a tail, D, a head and a tail, and then E, at most a head? Okay, so our possible outcomes. We have what? Head, 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 tail, tail, head, and then tail, tail. Okay, so we have learned that these will be our possible outcomes when a coin is tossed twice, or 2 coins are tossed at the same time. All right, then we have to find the number, because probably we have to find the number. What will be the number of possible outcomes? So number of possible outcomes, we know will be what? Will be 4. So the number of possible outcomes is definitely going to be 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4. Then what is the next? What is the probability of obtaining A, exactly 2 heads? Okay, so exactly 2 heads. So you look at your possible outcome. Where do you see exactly 2 heads? We have head, head. So he's talking about head, head. Okay, so exactly 2 heads is 1. So exactly 2 heads. We have what? The head, head. This is exactly 2. So number of exactly 2 heads is 1. Number of, okay, so the n into bracket the number of, so number of exactly 2 heads is what? 1. Okay, so 1. So probability of, say we should find probability of, you say the probability of exactly 2 hairs is equal to 1 out of the total number of possible outcomes, which is what? Which is 4. So exactly 2 hairs, we have only 1. So probability of exactly 2 hairs will be 1 over 4. Okay, now let's go to the B. no head. So no head. It means that when the two coins were tossed, we didn't see any head. Well, so we look at the possible outcome. There is a head here, there is a head here, there is a head here. So no head, that definitely means that it will be tail. That means we don't have any head. So number of no head will be 1. So therefore probability of no head will also be what? 1 out of the total number of possible outcomes. So 1 out of what? 1 out of 4. So the probability of no head is also 1 over 4. Okay, so what is the next thing? At least a tail. So at least a tail. At least a tail. At least a tail, that where we will see either one tail or two tails. So the maximum number of tails that we can see here is 2. At least one is 1 or more, but here the maximum is 2. So either we will see only 1 or 2. That is at least a tail. So let's look at, there is no tail here, so this is not at least a tail. Head tail is one of the outcome that can get us at least a tail. There is a tail. Tail head is also at least a tail, and then tail. At least a tail with that one tail or even 2 more. So there is a tail here, there is a tail, there is a tail. So you look at the number of at least a tail. How many? 3. So number of at least a tail is 3. 1, 2, 3. Therefore probability of at least a tail is going to give us 3 over the total number of possible outcomes, which is what? Which is 4. So probability of at least a tail is 3 over 4. 3 over 4. We are on D. Okay. D. The D is a head and a tail. So we are going to look at where we see a head and a tail. So we look at the possible outcomes. Where do we have a head and a tail? Okay, this is head, this is tail. So head and tail, and then tail and head. So this is, you can see head and tail also here. So this is a head and a tail. So number of a head and a tail is equal to 2. Therefore probability of a head and a tail will be equal to 2 out of the total number of possible outcomes, 4. And that is the same as 1 over 2. 1 over 2. So a head and a tail is going to give us 1 over 2. 1 over 2. The last one, at most a head. At most a head. So what is at most a head? It means that one head or even less. Alright, at most a head. So this is 2 heads. So this cannot be included as at most a head. So at the maximum a head. Alright. So this is not part. Okay, this is 2 heads. It's at most a head. So there is 1 head here. So this can be included for the at most a head. There's also another head here. So this can be included. And tail, yes. Even if there is none. Okay, we don't even see a head. It should also be counted, because it said 2 a head or less. So it can happen that there is no head. So it's a head or less. So 1 head or no head. That is what is counted to be at most a head. So at most a head, you have what? Head, tail. There is 1 head here, tail, head, and then tail. So that is also at most. So either there is 1 head or no head at all. Okay, so that is at most. I believe that is understood. So number of at most a head will give us 3. Therefore probability of at most a head is going to be 3 over 4. Is going to be 3 over 4. So these are some of the questions they can ask you. So thank you for your time and thank you for watching. Next lesson we will see Tosin Ekwen 3 times. Tosin Ekwen 3 times. All right. Bye bye.